So I would like to present our next speakers, Anna and Chris Batchelder. They are co-founders of Bonn Education and Bonn for Work. Like architects and designers, Bonn Education creates education programs for corporates, governments, SMEs, and nonprofits. Their client portfolio includes organizations such as Google, Meydan, Racecourse, Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation, Godolphin, Jometa Group, Microsoft, Expo 2020, and other government entities. I will leave it to Anna and Chris to get started on their presentation, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Hi, so my name is Chris Batchelder, and I'm one of the co-founders of Bonn Education, and also the creative director of learning design at Bonn Education, which is fun.
I'm Anna Batchelder, yeah, his wife, and I am CEO, Chief Education Officer of Bonn Education.
And Bonn Education is a learning design company, and we're going to tell you a lot about learning design in our learning design practice over the next 20 minutes, but just a short preview, we design custom education and learning programs for our clients. And our clients come from a wide variety of industries. So we actually work a lot outside of the education sector. And we work with clients from lots of different types of organizations. So of course, we work a lot with government, semi-government, for-profit companies, some nonprofits, as well as some small SMEs, which is an interesting part of our work. And when Global Art Forum and FOUS came to us and said, could you share about the work you do, we thought it would be really nice to give you a snapshot of the work we've done across the UAE and sort of follow the dotted line. So we have from Ras al Khaimah to Ruwais. I just wanted to know how many people here have been to Ras al Khaimah? Okay, so we have a local crowd. Beautiful mountains and beaches. And how many of you have been to Ruwais? Ah, much less. Oil fields and oil and gas industry and beautiful towns, so I recommend you visit. And what we want to do is tell you some stories from our work across the UAE, and from that pull out some of the key principles we've learned over the last 10 years in learning design, and how we apply those principles to create impactful and powerful learning experiences. Oops. So, school is a factory. So this is, of course, the theme of this forum. And so this is a metaphor, right? School is a factory. So it's great. We can communicate about abstract ideas using metaphors. And we think there are ways in which this metaphor is absolutely true. And that's probably a good thing, we think. You know, you want to be able to replicate learning across, multiple scales. And there's probably ways in which we'd all like to change school as a factory. But without a doubt, we started our career working in an educational institution that was absolutely a factory. And it was a factory full of these beautiful, adorable children. And so we started our career working in Japan at a foreign language institute in Osaka that taught English. And so as you might imagine, this is like a highly regimented environment where every lesson is scripted and on the hour, every hour, and week after week, and even to the point January one year and January the next year is the same content we were presenting. So we didn't last very long in this environment, but what we did establish was a deep passion for learning. And so today we'd like to tell you the story, our story, from school as a factory to where we are today as learning designers, working something more like school as a creative studio or school as a creative practice. And so to tell that story, we need to go to 2008 when we arrived in the UAE. And I had another job working in a completely different industry, and Anna decided it was the perfect time to start a company, which I obviously eventually joined. And that brings us to our first destination, Ras al Khaimah.
Yeah, so I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I picked a free zone in Ras al Khaimah, took our little Toyota by myself, drove up. It was a rental car. spent a lot of time in buildings that look like this, and eventually Bonn Education was born. In the early days of Bonn Education, we focused very much on working with teachers and doing digital literacy initiatives. And the reason for that is it matched my work experience in the past, but also we saw that the government was putting internet in schools across the country and upgrading computer labs, and there was a huge need to provide training for teachers and principals to use this in a very meaningful way. So this work took us to places like the village of Toin, Ras al Khaimah, and all over Abu Dhabi. And what was really exciting about the work in the early days is that the teachers and principals were really receptive. In some cases, we were working with teachers that knew programming and were very advanced in their skills, but in many cases, we were working with people that were really hungry to learn, to the point that we had to show them how to power up a laptop. Our hot topic of 2009 was blogging. And people loved it, and especially in the more remote areas, I think what teachers liked so much about it is it was a tool for their students to tell their own stories, and it was also very helpful for teachers, especially in Ras al Khaimah, to communicate with parents, because many of the fathers in Ras al Khaimah actually work in Abu Dhabi. So this work in the early days of the company, for I'd say the first 2 or 3 years, took us all over the place. We eventually started doing the work on behalf of Microsoft and Cisco and Google. And this is when we really started to cement our understanding of what we now call the outer dimension of learning design, which is designing for learning objectives and figuring out what are resonant topics that match the audience we're working with. How do we play with the physical space in a classroom, and how does that impact the learner? We set our priorities, which said in order for people to learn, you always have to have safety, psychological safety, social safety, physical safety. People have to be having fun, and only then can learning actually take place. And then we focus very much on empowerment, which is connecting people with the knowledge that they wanted to have.
So this is our first principle of learning design, our first dimension that we designed for. And it's a great baseline, like it's a solid foundation, but there's nothing very surprising here, right? We would hope that most learning programs and education is ticking these boxes. I think what's surprising is how often we fail to miss this mark, even ourselves sometimes. And so at this point in time, we were feeling pretty confident in designing for these things and really looking for what is the next level, like what else could we add to the way we're designing learning programs. And so little did I know that we were about to meet a client that would sort of change the way we thought about our work, even change the way we thought about our relationship to each other. And it all happened when Anna met a tall Swedish gentleman at a meeting, and he asked her for coffee. He wanted to work with us, and he happened to be the co-founder of this company, Gozam. And it's a great company. I recommend actually you all check it out. They lead parenting workshops and relationship workshops, and they also have a coaching school. And in order for us to do our work for them, we had to immerse ourselves in the world of coaching. And so we went through all of their courses and all of their programs, and in that process, we learned about coaching, which is a great journey. I mean, you learn to make a vision for yourself and see possibility, to actively manage your mindset, to set goals and stay on track with them, and also to communicate in ways that are open and build trust and relationship. And the primary lever for all of this in coaching is reflective practice. Right? And this is incredibly powerful, of course, for individuals. As individuals, it's transformative, but it's also incredibly transformative as learning designers. Now, this was new to us, but it's not new in general. We like this quote by the American philosopher and educational reformer, John Dewey. We do not learn from experience, but we learn from reflecting on experience. And so in our practice at this point, we started playing around with how creative could we be with the kinds of experiences we were designing, and how creative could we be with the ways in which we were encouraging reflection and reflective practice. And as we played around with these different combinations, it opened up new possibilities in our work. So those same classrooms that were kind of regimented and behind the computer now opened up and were vibrant, engaging. People were laughing, having lots of fun. Not that they weren't before. And it allowed us to work across a broader range of industries. So this is the Made-On Equine Education Program, where we bring students and their teachers to Made-On, where they learn about the exciting world of equine sports. But they do it in a way that connects them with their curriculum and the things they're studying, and to see how the things they're studying in school are applicable. And this wraps up with an artistic reflection the students do. We also worked with a variety of clients in Abu Dhabi, and particularly around engagement of youth in sciences, engineering, and technology, the STEM fields. This particular project, the student is working on and building an assembly line to manufacture these skylights in a mock city we built out of cardboard. And this is modeled after a real project in the Philippines called Leader of Light. Maybe some of you have heard of it, where they use simple materials to create skylights in homes that don't have electricity. This is the same program, but a different project. These students are thinking about thinking about city of the future and aviation in the city of the future, and how drones might be used in search and rescue and first responder, as well as for delivery. And we were doing this before drones were such a big thing, so we were cutting edge. And this took us to Ruwais and all over Abu Dhabi. And the schools we were working in looked something like this. So pretty good facilities. And it's ironic because at this point in time, we came from school as a factory, and we were scripting our programs down to the minute to ensure that we were creating the kind of experience we wanted. We don't do that anymore. This was overboard. So we were sitting with the human capital team recently from one of these clients, and they said to us, "You remember all those programs you led all those years ago? All those kids, they went on and studied engineering, and they went on and became engineers and scientists." So we said, "Okay, this is great. These programs are having an impact." At this time, we also worked with a pizza company and a hotel company, and we worked in a prison. We worked with a car company. We even found ourselves on the top of the mountains of Wales, taking a group of Emirati scholarship students on a leadership expedition. And I think the highlight of this program is when a young Emirati female who had been kind of holding back the whole time, "I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that," and we were like, "That's fine." We came to the rock climbing challenge, this 50-foot wall, and it was really clear she wanted to do it. And she's like, "No, I don't think so, I don't think so." And then finally, she did it, and she climbed to the top. And she was so proud of herself, and we're all cheering for her. Because the thing is, she did it wearing full abaya. I bring this up as an example because she's able to overcome this outer challenge that she really wanted to do by aligning it with her values and her culture and her heritage. So aligning the inner dimension of learning design, which is the second dimension which we designed for. The exciting thing about the inner dimension is that at this dimension, people become the content. So it's no longer about the external learning objectives. It's about you. You become the content. And that's a really exciting thing to design for, and the programs are really fun to be a part of. Yeah, the language and the decisions that people are making. And it's really important in this dimension, and when you're working with this dimension, that we have the metacognitive level working, because we're providing all this stimulus to our participants, and it can be extremely influential. And we want to make sure that they are reflecting and understand how they are responding to the stimulus that they're getting, so that they make decisions for themselves.
As we got deeper into our learning design practice, we realized that there's another dimension that we need to think about, and that's the interdimension of learning, which is intentionally designing for the relationships between the people that are in the courses or workshops or programs that we're in. So we're thinking about what's their narrative as a group, what value do they add to each other, and what legacy do they leave behind. So perhaps the purest example of that, this is the Dubai Business Associates program. It's a program we've been involved with for 5 years now with Falcon and Associates. It's under the patronage of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed. And it brings top graduates from around the world to live, work, and study in the UAE. And our goal in this program is really to create lots of ambassadors that when they go back to their home countries, they have a very strong narrative in relationship to this place. And so we do all sorts of things in that program. One, they study business. Two, they spend a lot of time working in UAE companies. Three, they do consulting projects for those companies, like for Emirates and DP World. But we do a lot of cultural visits and a lot of team challenges. So we take them on camping expeditions. We do a lot of work that intentionally puts them into conflict with one another so that they learn a lot about each other and learn how to resolve conflict. We take them to entrepreneurs around the country so that they learn that UAE is really amazing at creating a platform for lots of people to be successful. This is raw coffee. We take them pearl diving so that they learn about the UAE's history, and they also have to learn about each other by completing this challenge together. Another project where we had to really think carefully about the interdimension of learning was the Shelter Dubai. For those of you that have been around for a while, this is the cool place before all the co-working spaces came about. And our job as education program developers there was basically to bring the entrepreneurial ecosystem together. So we brought the fashion community together, the tech community together, the F&B community together. This is a more recent project. We were working with a semi-government entity to bring unemployed youth from the region into employment. So we developed a 9-month workforce readiness program where they worked in the entity as well as they had 7 weeks of classroom-based training. And at the heart of that classroom-based training were applied business challenges. Everything they did in the training was a deliverable to the company. And that was highly motivating for them. A project we're working on right now is with the Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation. It's called Project Design Space. It's a really amazing project because it brings together the private sector, academia, and young people. Basically, kids meet in after-school design and innovation clubs, and they solve real challenges. So we started the program with a pilot 3 years ago with 100 kids, and this year we had about 4,000 youth across the country solving challenges for Dubai Mall, Dubai Holding, and other major entities. So if you're in the design district on Saturday, there'll be hundreds of youth and their parents presenting, so come see us, Building 4. So just to summarize the interdimension of learning, we're really focused on meaningful challenges, really looking at a group and the way they think about each other and the narrative that they have, as well as the legacy they create together.
So to summarize, these are the 3 dimensions that we're designing for when we create learning experiences. But there's probably more. This is what we're working with to date. So have us back in a few years and we can expand this list. But we've got the outer dimension, which is really focused on the physical, the external outcomes and the knowledge and skills that learners are acquiring. The inner dimension, which is personal and emotional and really about, it's selfish in a good way, really. And then the interdimension, which is relational and really brings in society and culture and hopefully even international and crossing borders and boundaries. We think when you design across all 3 of these dimensions, you create really great learning experiences.
So what? Who cares beyond us? Well, if you think about our role in society, every day we are making decisions about what knowledge, practices, and values are getting replicated over time across generations. So the role of a learning designer, the brief that we have to follow is how do we work to achieve almost any outcome, depending on the client, by directing humans' natural desire to learn through the various experiences and environments and messages that we present to them. It's a little bit like a board game. So if I were to go around and pair each of you in the audience and put a board game between you, let's say Twister, you'd all start behaving in very funny ways that you wouldn't normally do in public, right? That's what we do as learning designers. So with that comes great opportunity to obviously impact lots of people, as well as responsibility and risk. So in order to take advantage of the opportunity, as well as mitigate the risk, we're constantly putting the responsibility of choice and learning and agency on the learner. Whenever we meet with participants in our workshop, whether there's 4,000 people or 20, we're always asking them to think through questions like this. How will we decide? What outcomes do we want? What actions will we take? Who will manage the process, and how will we collaborate? It's their responsibility.
So to date, we've worked mainly at the project level with 20 to 4,000 people in any program or learning experience, which is pretty good, but we have a desire to do more, and we think that learning design as a practice has more to offer, even across an entire domain like healthcare or finance, and even across society, maybe even solving or helping contribute to solve some of the major challenges we're facing, like the environment, and maybe take advantage of opportunities, hopefully there are opportunities, on the horizon around artificial intelligence or moving off this planet. So we're rewriting our brief as learning designers to be something like this. How might we as humans use learning to secure the future of humanity and the planet? Which sounds, it's pretty grand, right? It's grandiose. But it's also kind of the brief that people working in the future industry are giving themselves. And a lot of focus and emphasis is being put on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and technology, right? Which we absolutely are excited about and think can be a big part of the solution. But we want to make sure that we focus on humans and how we can maximize humans' ability to create a good future. And we think that requires a slightly different kind of learning design, one where we are programming humans to program themselves, right? And we know this is possible because we're already doing this, but just on smaller scales. So we need to multiply this scale and work across these 3 dimensions that we've shared with you today. And we probably need to do it at a faster pace because we probably don't have another 500,000 years to sit around.
After all, there's 7.7 billion human supercomputers. Yeah, that's us, connected in parallel. And as a species, obviously, humans have done an amazing thing, and we think with the intentional application of learning design, we can help contribute to future achievements as well.
So you can connect with us on our website, and thank you very much.